As possible. This is the coldest air so far of the season, and we are actually running a good 16 degrees colder at this time in comparison to yesterday. And let's show you what it's like in Broward County. We have 49 in Fort Lauderdale, 48 in Pompano, 40 in Coral Springs as well, to 48 in Plantation, Weston at 50, Pembroke Pines at 51. In Miami-Dade, we are in the low 50s. At the airport, 52, Coral Gables 51, 50 in North Miami to 51 in Sweetwater, heading south, 52 Homestead, Cutler Bay at 52, and temperatures have made it into the widespread 50s across the Keys. Key Largo reporting 53, 54 in Marathon to 58 for you in Key West. And we're not used to this type of weather lingering for several days, so it's always important to dress in layers, protect your pets by bringing them indoors, practice fire safety, be extra cautious if you're going to be using any sort of space heater, keep them away from furniture and curtains. More details on your local weather coming up in a few minutes. Morning, South Florida. Hopefully everyone's off to a great start. Just make sure that you bundle up. This is so far the coldest air this season that we're feeling. And right now looking at mostly clear skies, but there are some clouds out there. It is mostly dry on the radar and will continue dry for several days. Let's take a look at what it's like outside in Broward County. We have 40s, Lauderdale by the Sea, 49. 48 degrees in Davie, Plantation, 49 now in Weston. The same for Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood at 48. And in Miami-Dade County, low 50s. We have 51 at Miami Beach, 51 in Opelika, Miami Lakes, Hialeah, Sweetwater, the Gables at 51, heading south, 50 in West Kendall, 52 for you in Homestead, and in the Redlands at 50 degrees. And around the Florida Keys, widespread 50s here. We have 53 in Isla Mirada, 56 in Big Pine Key. The wind out of the cold air direction, and we're getting this Arctic air that has helped temperatures go down a good 11 to 13 degrees at this time versus yesterday. So yeah, it is definitely cold across South Florida, so make sure that you are prepared accordingly. This afternoon will be a cool one. Then we move on into tomorrow morning. It is going to be cold to start off, and in the afternoon it is still going to feel chilly across the region with high pressure in charge across the southeast. Does look like by Friday we'll start off cold in the morning, but by the afternoon it should be milder with the return of more of an onshore flow. But that's going to be temporary because then we're going to be following the next cold front. Your boating forecast has a small craft advisory until 7 a.m. for the Dade and Broward coastal waters. Seas building 4 to 6 feet up to 8 feet in the Gulf Stream. We have a use caution for the Keys. Coastal waters here light to a moderate chop. And the next tide cycle, well, that is going to be low tide this morning at 8:56 in Fort Lauderdale and at 9:05 in Miami. So for today, clouds near the coast. It's not going to be as cold in the afternoon like it was yesterday. We're going to be in the lower 70s, 60s in the Florida Keys. Then overnight, the forecast low for Miami is 49, 48 degrees. So it'll be clear, cold. Similar chill will be felt across the region with a high temperature of 66 degrees. But then we warm up tad in the afternoon on Friday, setting the stage for another front to move in on Saturday. So don't be putting away the sweaters and jackets just yet. That's your 7-on-7 forecast. And good morning, South Florida. Sweater weather underway, so make sure that you bundle it properly. It's still going to be chilly tomorrow and even through Friday morning, but by the afternoon, that's when a slight and brief warm up is expected. Here's a look at the 24-hour temperature change. This is a significant dip in degrees for us, anywhere between 11 to 14, 16 degrees colder at this time in comparison to yesterday. 40. This is what it's like right now in Broward, 49 in Lauderdale by the Sea, Fort Lauderdale, Davie down to 48, same for Plantation, and then in Miami-Dade County, North Miami, you've managed to go down to 49, 51 in Hialeah, 52 at the airport, and in southern Miami-Dade, West Kendall at 50, 52 in Homestead, widespread 50s for the Florida Keys, Isla Mirada at 54, 58 for you in Key West. So make sure that you're doing everything possible to protect yourself by dressing in layers, protect your pets, and also practice fire safety. We're not used to this type of weather lingering for more than a day or two, and it's going to stick around for a bit. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything possible to stay safe and warm. More details on your local weather coming up in a few minutes. South Florida, it is very chilly by our standards, so make sure that you're bundling up properly. We have clear skies across mainland locations, but near the coast, that's where we have some cloud cover. And as far as the radar is concerned, it's mostly dry if your commute takes you through Broward, Dade, and the Florida Keys. Let's get you out the door and show you what it's like in the 40s, 50s out there. It's 47 in Coral Springs, 48 Davie, Plantation, 49 degrees. Good morning to over in Fort Lauderdale. In Miami-Dade County, North Miami's at 49, 50 in Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, Miami Beach, 51 in Hialeah. Then we head south, 50 in South Miami, Cutler Bay reporting 53 degrees, 50 in the Redlands. So hopefully growers taking the proper precautions around the Florida Keys. Widespread 50s this time around, and now Key Largo down to 52. 56 degrees in Big Pine Key. We have the breeze out of the cold air direction. It's a little bit lighter today than it was yesterday, 17 miles per hour, especially for you in Key Largo, with temperatures running a good 13 degrees colder in the last 24 hours. So we're going to have a cool day across the region. High pressure in charge across the southeast tomorrow morning. It is still going to be cold, 40s and 50s, and we're actually going to have colder high temperatures in the 60s. Plenty of sunshine still sticks around on Friday with nice weather. It'll be cold to start, but in the afternoon we get more of an onshore flow, so temperatures will warm up a little bit more, and that brief warm up will open up the path for yet another front to work its way into the region on Saturday. Your boating forecast still has a small craft advisory. This one's going to run through 7 a.m. for the Dade and Broward coastal waters. Seas building 4 to 6 feet up to 8 feet in the Gulf Stream. There's an exercise caution for the Florida Keys coastal waters, light to a moderate chop. We're going to get low tide happening at 8:56 in Fort Lauderdale, 9:44 for Key West. So for today, clouds near the coast, not as cold in the afternoon like it was yesterday. High temperatures at about 70, but the 60s for the Florida Keys. Overnight, chilly again. 49's the forecast low in Miami. 48 in Fort Lauderdale. Your extended outlook does call for this chill to last for a while. So we get this brief warm up between Friday afternoon and Saturday, but then it's back to chilly on Sunday. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
With a look at our first forecast. Hi, Viv.
Hi there in South Florida. Thank you for starting your day with us. It is chilly by South Florida standards, and in the last 24 hours, temperatures have gone down a good 10 to 14 degrees, and we're certainly feeling it. This is the coldest air so far this season for us. So yes, we're in the low 50s, but in Broward County, we're actually encountering the 40s, and it's 48 in Fort Lauderdale, 47 in Davie, 50 in Sunrise. In Miami-Dade County, we actually have now Miami Shores down to 49, but Miami at the airport 51, southern Miami-Dade low 50s, 52 for you in Homestead at this time. Widespread 50s for the Florida Keys, 53 in Isla Mirada. Now, we're not used to this weather lasting for more than a day or two, but it's set to linger. So you want to make sure that you're dressing in layers, protect your pets, and practice fire safety. And speaking of fires, out west, the Santa Ana winds fueling these fires. Chino reporting a gust of 49 miles per hour, and there have been gusts up to 86 miles per hour measured yesterday. Hopefully the winds later this week will start to go down, but unfortunately the dry weather, low humidity set to continue. More details on this, our local weather in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. We're waking up to a chill in the air, the coldest air so far this season. And we're seeing a few clouds, but mainly along the coast and into the Florida Keys. As far as the radar is concerned, it's mostly dry. We won't have to worry about rain in quite some time. So let's take a look at the temperature change in the last 24 hours. Temperatures have dropped a good 10 to 11 degrees. And right now it is 48 in Pompano, 48 in Fort Lauderdale to 50 in Hialeah, Miami down to 51, 51 in Kendall to 52 in Homestead. And just before sunrise, temperatures could drop a degree or two more. Around the Florida Keys, widespread 50s here. Key Largo 52, 54. Isla Mirada, Marathon at 58 in Key West, with the wind out of the cold air direction not as strong as it was yesterday. So here's the outlook. We're going to continue with this brutal blast by South Florida standards, with the northerly flow persisting at least through Friday. We'll have that cold air connection in place. But tonight we got a reinforcing shot of cold air. The forecast though for Miami at 49, so a tad colder. And we're going to be on the back end of this cold air heading into Friday morning. So temperatures will start off chilly at about 50 degrees, several spots in the western suburbs in the 40s. But by the afternoon, warmer air builds into the region, temporarily setting the stage for temperatures to climb into the 60s to start off on Saturday as another cold front settles in. Your boating forecast doesn't look the best right now. We have a small craft advisory at least until 7 a.m. for the Dade and Broward coastal waters. Seas building 4 to 6 feet up to 8 feet in the Gulf Stream. And around the Florida Keys, there's an use caution with seas inside the reef building 1 to 2+ feet. And the next tide cycle will be low tide coming up this morning in the 8 o'clock hour for Fort Lauderdale, 9:05 in Miami. Highs today at about 70, 71 degrees along the coastline, so not as cold in the afternoon like yesterday. Tonight, temperatures will be similar across the region, so you'll be sporting around the sweaters and jackets for sure. So we're going to get a front moving in on Saturday, and the sweater weather set to continue into next week. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
Hey, hi, Viv.
Hi there. This is really nice for a change, but we're just not used to this type of weather lasting for more than a day or two. And in the last 24 hours, temperatures have gone down a good 10 to 14 degrees. So it's much colder to start off, and we want everyone to be prepared. It is 50 in Sunrise, 48 in Plantation, same for Fort Lauderdale. And in northern Miami-Dade, we have some 40s and 50s here. Miami Shores, North Miami at 49, 51 at Miami International Airport, same for South Miami. And around southern Miami-Dade, the Redlands at 50, 52 in Homestead, widespread 50s in the Keys, 52 Key Largo, Key West reporting 58 degrees. And it is going to linger, this chill, for a while. So we want to make sure that you dress in layers, protect your pets by bringing them indoors, and practice fire safety as well. And if you have any sort of outdoor plants that may be sensitive to temperature changes, you want to bring them inside as well. Big View indicating that it is pretty clear across the state and very cold, where there are some frost advisories and freeze warnings in effect through this morning, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get extended. More details on your local weather in a few minutes. Morning, South Florida. We're waking up to mostly clear skies, some coastal clouds, and clouds lingering around parts of the Florida Keys. But there's this deep winter chill, South Florida style, in the air, so you will want to dress accordingly. It is mostly dry. We'll focus on temperatures because that will be our main weather story over the next several days. And in the last 24 hours, temperatures have dropped a good 9 to 11 degrees. This is what it's like outside. 48 in Pompano, Fort Lauderdale, 50 in Hollywood to 50 in Hialeah, 51 in Miami to 51 in Kendall. Homestead reporting 52. Widespread 50s as well for the Florida Keys. We have 52 in Key Largo, 56 Big Pine Key to 58 in Cudjoe Key and Key West. The wind out of the cold air direction, lighter today than it was yesterday, 7 to 16 miles per hour. And we will have this chilly air continuing to flow in because of our northerly winds, and it will stick around at least through Friday morning. So we're going to get a reinforcing shot of cold air arriving tonight. The forecast low for Miami will be 49, so just a tad colder. We're going to be on the back end of this cold, but then on Friday morning, we'll wake up to 50 degrees. Then it's warmer in the afternoon, and that will set the stage for a brief warm up, especially through Saturday ahead of yet another cold front. We have a small craft advisory for the Dade Broward coastal waters through 7 a.m. North winds 5 to 10 knots, seas building 4 to 6 feet, but up to 8 feet in the Gulf Stream. We have a use caution for the Keys. Seas building inside the reef 1 to 2+ feet, 3 to 6 foot seas beyond the reef. And the next tide cycle will be low tide at 8:56 in Fort Lauderdale, 9:44 for you in Key West. So for today, we will have clouds near the coast. It's not going to be as cold in the afternoon like it was yesterday. Tonight, we're still going to have a similar chill, 40s and 50s, with your extended outlook calling for a slight and brief warm up between Friday afternoon and Saturday, and then back to chilly on Sunday. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast. Morning, and this is a winter chill South Florida style that we're experiencing, with temperatures dropping down a good 7 to 14 degrees in comparison to yesterday at this hour. So this is definitely chilly by our standards. A lot of areas in Broward County are in the 40s, and Davie, Plantation, you're reporting 47. Same in Hollywood, 48 in Fort Lauderdale to 50 in Sunrise. And then we move on into northern Miami-Dade. We have some 40s in there, but for the most part in the low 50s. 49 in North Miami, Miami Shores, Opelika, Miami Lakes, Coral Gables at 50, and then around southern Miami-Dade in the low 50s at this time. Homestead reporting 53. We do have widespread 50s too around the Keys. Key Largo at 52. 57 in Key West. And your day planners calling for a cold start. It'll be milder in the afternoon in comparison to yesterday. Mostly sunny with a high of 71 degrees. But we are not used to this type of weather lasting more than a day or two, and it is set to linger. So it's so important to dress in layers, protect your pets by bringing them indoors, and also if you have any sort of plants that are sensitive to temperature changes, to bring those inside, at least the potted ones. But practice fire safety. And speaking of fires, as we move on into the West Coast, California, dealing with those wildfires and those strong Santa Ana winds that are forecast to continue today. In Chino, we have a wind gust of 38 miles per hour. Camarillo, 41 miles per hour, and there have been gusts up to 86 miles per hour measured yesterday. And we are expecting by the end of the week the winds to start to go down, but unfortunately the dry air and low humidity is set to persist. And around these areas there are watches and warnings that are currently in effect. High wind warnings, brush fire warnings that will remain in effect for a few more days. I'll be back with a whole lot more in your local forecast coming up in about 15 minutes. Good morning, South Florida. We have this chill in the air, so make sure that you're dressing accordingly. And there are a few coastal clouds around the Florida Keys, but that's pretty much it. It looks beautiful outside, but it's feeling chilly, and you won't have to worry about rain for several days. Temperature wise, we're running a good 9 degrees colder at this time in comparison to yesterday, and a lot of areas in Broward County have woken up into the 40s. Right now it's 49 in Pompano Beach, 48 in Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood reporting 50 degrees, Hialeah at 50, 51 at Miami International Airport, Kendall 51, Homestead at 53 degrees. Florida Keys widespread 50s. Islamorada, you've gone down to 54, 57 in Cudjoe Key. The wind out of the cold air direction, north-northwest, lighter today. And we will have this brutal blast continuing courtesy of a northerly flow that's going to persist at least through Friday morning. And tonight we're going to get a reinforcing shot of cold air, so temperatures could be a tad colder 49 is the forecast low for Miami. We're going to be on the back end of the cold air heading into Friday, bumping up the low for the morning at 50, and then it starts to warm up in the afternoon ahead of another cold front that is set to sweep through sometime on Saturday. But by Saturday morning, temperatures climb into the 60s to about 80 degrees in the afternoon, and then it's back to chilly once the front crosses through. Use caution, boaters around Biscayne Bay, threat of currents at area beaches, north winds 5 to 10 knots. Seas building 4 to 6 feet higher in the Gulf Stream. There's a use caution as well in the Keys. Coastal waters going between a light to a moderate chop. And the next tide cycle, that's going to be low tide at 8:56 in Fort Lauderdale, 9:05 in Miami. So for today, clouds will be near the coast. It's not going to be as cold in the afternoon like it was yesterday. We were only in the low 60s, 50s. It was just a day that we struggled to get out of that range. And today we'll be at about 70 degrees. Tonight we're going to have a similar chill in the 40s across Broward and Miami-Dade, 50s in the Florida Keys. So we warm up briefly Friday afternoon into Saturday, and then again back to chilly by South Florida standards. So make sure that you have those layers prepared to recycle and reuse through next week. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast. Please don't go anywhere. 7 News Today in Florida. We'll be right back.
How cold it's going to be and how long it's going to stick around, Viv?
Oh, it's going to stick around for several days, believe it or not. And this is how we woke up. The lowest readings this morning. In Coral Springs, it went down to 46. Fort Lauderdale, 48, 49 in Palmetto Bay. In Miami, as low as 51. 57 in Key West, and temperatures are running a good 8 to even 14 degrees colder at this time in comparison to yesterday. So this is a winter-like chill for sure for South Florida, and we're really not used to this type of weather. Currently in Broward County, still in the 40s for the most part. Davie, Plantation 47, Coral Springs up a degree to 47, 49 in Lauderdale by the Sea, and in Miami-Dade we have a few upper 40s, especially in North Miami and Miami Shores, but most areas in the low 50s. Hialeah, 50 degrees, same for Opelika and South Miami. Heading into extreme southern Miami-Dade, Homestead at 53. We do have widespread 50s in the Florida Keys, Marathon at 55. And your day planner is calling for it to remain cold, slightly warmer in the afternoon in comparison to yesterday with a high of 71. Your full forecast coming up in a few minutes. Morning, South Florida, and on this Wednesday, waking up to a chill in the air, so make sure that you are bundled up properly. And it is mostly dry, clear along the coastline, Florida Keys. That's where we're finding the majority of the clouds, but you won't have to worry about measurable rain in several days. And let's take a look at temperatures to get you out the door. Running a good 9 degrees colder at this time versus yesterday. Most of Broward County today has been in the 40s, right now up to 48 in Pompano, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood up to 50, same for Hialeah, Miami at 51, 51 in West Kendall. Heading into Homestead, 53 degrees. And around the Florida Keys, temperature readings widespread 50s, 52 Key Largo to 57 in Key West, with the wind out of the cold air direction not as strong as it was yesterday. But the forecast calls for the brutal blast to continue because of a persistent northerly flow. And it is going to at least persist through Friday morning, and then we get a brief warm up. So you want to make sure that you have those layers ready for a couple of days. Now, as far as our forecast is concerned, this afternoon won't be as chilly as it was yesterday. Temperatures do climb to about 70 degrees. Tomorrow morning, cold start, and we'll have high temperatures in the 60s, and then temperatures moderate a little bit on Friday, but especially in the afternoon. And that's all ahead of yet another cold front that was forecast to cross through late on Saturday. Use caution, boaters around Biscayne Bay. Threat of currents continues at area beaches. North winds 5 to 10 knots. Seas building 4 to 6 feet. And in the Florida Keys, there's a use caution too. Seas inside the reef 1 to 2+ feet, 3 to 6 foot seas beyond the reef. Now the next tide cycle is going to be low tide this morning at 8:56 in Fort Lauderdale, 9:44 in Key West. Highs today, 70, 71 between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, 65 in the Florida Keys. And then tonight, similar chill. It could be a tad colder, maybe by a degree or two, 40s and 50s, with your extended outlook calling for a brief warm up Friday afternoon into Saturday, and then back to chilly on Sunday. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
With our first forecast, we have good morning.
Good morning, Tavares, Olivia, South Florida. Thank you for starting your day with us. It's been a chilly one here at home, and this is the coldest air so far this season in almost 2 years, really. 46 was the low in Coral Springs, 48 in Fort Lauderdale, 52 in Key Largo to 51 in Miami. And temperatures right now running a good 14 degrees colder in the last 24 hours. This is where we're at right now. A lot of areas in Broward have been in the 40s, 48 in Plantation, same for Pompano, 51 in Sunrise. Northern Miami-Dade, few spots in the upper 40s like North Miami and Miami Shores. Hialeah reporting 51 to 50 degrees in South Miami and 54 in Homestead. We also have the widespread 50s in the Florida Keys. It is 52 in Key Largo, 58 Key West. And your day planners calling for temperatures to be milder in the afternoon this time around in the lower 70s. So you want to make sure that you're dressing in layers, protect your pets, but also practice fire safety. And speaking of fire safety, we have to go to the West Coast, where Santa Ana winds remain pretty strong. And in Chino, there's a wind gust of 32 miles per hour, gusts up to 86 miles per hour measured yesterday. And these strong winds are going to persist throughout today. The forecast does call for it to be a gusty one all the way through the afternoon hours. And then as we move on into the overnight, we're expecting the winds to start to go down, and that should help the situation, or at least in the firefight. But unfortunately, the weather pattern will remain mostly dry with low humidity most of the week. I'll be back with a whole lot more on this in our local forecast in about 15 minutes. We're waking up to a chill in the air. South Florida looking nice outside, but feeling, yes, cold. It is mostly dry on the local storm tracking radar. Will continue mostly dry over the next week or so. Temperature wise, we're running a good 9 degrees colder at this time in comparison to yesterday, and a lot of areas in Broward County did manage to get into the 40s. 49 in Fort Lauderdale currently, 49 in Pompano, 51 in Hollywood. Hialeah, good morning to you at 50, 52 in Miami. Same for West Kendall. Homestead at 54 degrees. And what about the Florida Keys? Widespread 50s here. Isla Mirada reporting 54, 58 for you in Cudjoe Key, with the wind out of the cold air direction not as strong as it was yesterday. So we will have a northerly flow persisting through Friday. So we're going to get this cold connection continuing across the region. So tomorrow morning, maybe a tad colder as a reinforcing shot of cold air settles in. It starts to warm up heading into Friday afternoon briefly, and Saturday as another cold front moves in across South Florida. Use caution, boaters around Biscayne Bay, seas building 4 to 6 feet up to 8 feet in the Gulf Stream. And around the Florida Keys, we also have a use caution. Coastal waters going between a light to a moderate chop. With the next tide cycle, that will be low tide coming up at the end of this hour at 8:56. So for today, clouds near the coast. It's not going to be as cold in the afternoon like yesterday. This time around, high temperatures will reach at about 70, 71 degrees in the 60s for the Florida Keys. Tonight, we'll still have a similar chill, maybe a degree or two colder, with temperatures in the 40s and 50s. But we'll have a very brief slight warm up Friday afternoon into Saturday as another cold front settles in. So make sure that you still have the sweaters and jackets with you. You're going to be recycling and reusing them into next week. And that's your 7 on 7. South Florida, the cold air connection is here to stay, with northerly flow persisting at least through Friday morning. And heading into tomorrow, we're going to get a reinforcing shot of cold air. So the morning could be a degree or two colder Then today, 49's the forecast low in Miami. And then on Friday, we're going to have some slight changes. We're going to be on the back end of the cold. 50 is the forecast low in Miami, but then in the afternoon, we're going to get some warmer winds, and that should help temperatures moderate a tad, but briefly through Saturday on response to a front. So the morning low on Saturday will be 65, but once the front crosses through, it is back to chilly. So make sure that you have the layers ready and be prepared that the chilly air by South Florida standards could last from the second half of the weekend and into next week. Exercise caution, boaters around Biscayne Bay, also in the Florida Keys, coastal waters, light to a moderate chop. With the next tide cycle, that's going to be low tide at 9:05 in Miami. So for today, clouds near the coast, not as cold in the afternoon like yesterday. Temperatures will range at about 70 degrees, 60s in the Keys. Tonight we'll have a similar chill in the 40s and 50s. And on your extended outlook, South Florida, we warm up briefly Friday afternoon into Saturday. Then once again, we'll be waking up into the 50s come Sunday. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast. We are waking up to chilly conditions by South Florida standards, so you have to make sure you bundle up properly. 49 in Fort Lauderdale, 50 currently in Pompano Beach, to 52 in Kenmore and Miami, up to 58 in Key West. And the winds are out of the north-northwest, lighter today than yesterday, 6 to 9 miles per hour. And as far as the radar is concerned, it'll stay mostly dry over the next week or so. We really don't have to worry about measurable rain. Our main weather story will be temperatures. So as we look into tonight, we're going to get this reinforcing shot of cold air. So temperatures across mainland locations, that includes Broward and Miami-Dade, will be in the upper 40s to near 50 along the coast, and around interior areas mid to upper 40s. For the Florida Keys, upper portions near 50, rest of the Florida Keys will be in the low to mid 50s. So we're going to continue with a persistent flow out of the north, that cold air connection to last. And tomorrow's high temperatures will actually be a little colder than what we're expecting today. They'll range in the 60s. We start to warm up a tad Friday afternoon, all ahead of another front system that will be brewing across the Gulf Coast states. And that's where we're going to see a line of rain, changing order, freezing rain and snow. But up ahead, yes, it'll be slightly warmer briefly between Friday and Saturday. Your boating forecast has an exercise caution. Biscayne Bay light chop, light to moderate chop in the Keys. There's also a use caution here, with low tide happening next at 9:05 in Miami. So for today, we'll have highs at about 70, 71 degrees. It's not going to be as cold as it was yesterday in the afternoon. Tonight, similar chill in the 40s and 50s, with your extended outlook calling for a brief warm up, if you want to call it that, Friday into Saturday, but then it's back to chilly Sunday morning. That's your 7 on 7 forecast. Please don't go anywhere. 7 News Today in Florida. We'll be right back.